Metroid Prime 3 as incompetent and annoying younger brothers. You're kind of belaboring the point because... Not belaboring the point, I'm sorry, that was messing up the words. He's making a false argument by comparing two completely different situations. The Pac-Man and Asteroids fans were controlled at least similarly. Yes, the joystick and NES gamepad are different, at least from the D-pad and joystick, but they controlled at least the same function. You tilt the joystick up or the D-pad up, the character moves up. You know what's supposed to happen, at least, when you just look at the damn thing. The Wii Remote is just as technically confusing as any other controller, it just now has motion gimmicks with it. Moving on. Wii shooters are, in fact, better than their self-important older brothers. He lies. When they lack a technical stature and one-sided nuance, they make up for with creative potential. Potential means it has not been met, you loser. And a richer palette of core mechanics that are so often totally ignored in dual analog shooters. They're ignored for a reason, because they're not fun to do. I can admit that some of this stuff future may, work if the controls are actually there. However, the Wii Remote, and as far as I can tell, even with Wii Motion Plus, from what little I played of Wii Sports Resort, still aren't quite there yet. Moving on. I've played through the original Red Steel 3 times, and I still haven't tried... I've played through the original Red Steel 3 times, and I still haven't tired of feeling my view change by moving my arm. You, sir, have lost all credibility by actually liking any aspect of Red Steel 1. It was a terrible, terrible game. I'm still excited by playing my turns in advance with a physical adjustment after having read the environment in advance. And you, sir, are reading this game way too deeply. I haven't tired of opening doors and pressing buttons by moving my hand in a rough approximation. I'm still impressed by whittling down my aim at a pixel level that's impossible with dual analog control. I'm still excited by the idea that physical confrontation will require gestures that affect my entire body in order to progress. Well, that makes your opinion. I prefer just lying on my couch and being a lazy bastard. To be perfectly honest, I think he's getting a little too happy about motion controls, and frankly, if he wants motion controls, go play DDR or something. I mean, please, seriously. You can point out the jittery gaming ridicule, the robotic enemy intelligence, the spotty gestural recognition, or how absurdly easy killing enemies become once you've mastered the controls. But this happens in all first-person shooters, so I don't know what he's complaining about. It's on both the systems. Those criticisms stand, but they do nothing to unseat the terrific reconceptualization of first-person game design that can only really happen by virtue of motion controls. Not really. I mean, I look at Mirror's Edge, and that really changed how first-person games were viewed in my eyes. You really could make a first-person platformer. There were problems with it, yes, but it was innovation without messing up with the controls. The controls were fairly obvious. There were a few problems with it, but nothing that a sequel with better control mechanisms can't fix. It doesn't need to have motion controls to be changing the flow of the game. He's giving way too much credit to the controls here that are very inefficient and don't work terribly well. Moving on. Halo is a fine game, but there's no next step after it. Modern Warfare 2 and Bioshock are steps backwards from that open-ended, AI-driven playground where constant movement, assisted aiming, and unbroken aggression were the norm. How are they backwards? Bioshock was so much better than many other first-person shooters on the market. The thing is, he's missing the point that it was a narrative advancement, not necessarily a gameplay one. And even it had some good gameplay advancements, like the whole different powers you could upgrade, thus giving you a bit more freedom into how you played the game rather than just run into a room and shoot everyone. I agree it got a bit monotonous at certain points of the game, but the narrative was was excellent, and you could just play the game purely for that, and I think he's missing the point of Bioshock altogether. We can make those games prettier, add variety to their gun models, parse attack abilities into magic, and build explosive new wallpaper for the backgrounds, but that won't make a better shooter than Halo. Actually, it will, because the narrative and thus the environments will be more interesting to be in. That will require an entirely new way to think about enemy encounters, environment, and object design, and the tools player will use to interact with them. You might think of the Wii's motion controls as a short-sighted gimmick whose expiration date is already overdue, which it is. By this holiday season, Sony and Microsoft launched their own dedicated motion control devices. So far, Sony has shown hastily implemented pointer support for SOCOM 4 and a shooting gallery game. A move-enabled version of Resident Evil 5 is coming as well. Bungie has declared Halo Reach will be free of motion controls, but Lionhead is diving in with Natal support for Fable 3. More revelations will doubtless come at E3, and I, for one, am hating this motion control nonsense more and more because I like my games played just fine, thank you. There's a reason the standard control scheme hasn't really changed all that much since the NES days, because it fucking works. You don't see people changing the way a TV is just to change things. It works just, the basic system works just fine. It comes, I will save this for the end of the interview, sorry. As with any major paradigm shift, there will be lots of reluctant experimentation with the basics, but ask yourself, in 2 years' time, do you expect there to be more motion-controlled first-person shooters or fewer? Well, if the Wii continues to sell, there's certainly going to be more because the market is trying and cash in on all the new gamers. In an increasingly competitive market in which spectacle and vicariousness sensation are fundamentals, do you think hungry game developers will turn away from motion controls or invest in new ways of using them as a way to stand apart? A confrontation of ideas is coming, and it will hinge on the issue of motion controls as a way of bringing games into real three-dimensional space. No, motion controls do not move into a three-dimensional space. You are simply changing the way in which the user interacts with it, which not necessarily is a good thing. Wherever that confrontation leads, it will be traveling in the footsteps of the Wii shooters that have so far done a better job of moving beyond the two-dimensional limits of dual analog control shooters and their oxidizing input mechanism. I think this guy is assuming way too much here. The problem with first-person shooters today is the level design and the way in which they appeal themselves. Every first-person shooter nowadays is super marine, fighting off aliens or what have you. I look at games like Ratchet and Clank, which is a shooter in the same way that, Call of Duty is a shooter. However, they are done in a much different way. This allows it to be more unique and thus more enjoyable. It is not the control scheme that is going to make first-person shooters better. It is going to be in which they are designed. The thing is about the motion controls is that they don't really give you as much control as you would like. It's not going to be that good until we get to the point where it's really completely one-to-one, which isn't going to happen for a while. Even mice have their own problems with PC first-person shooters, and those are more accurate than the Wii, and as far as I can tell, even Sony's Move could possibly hope to achieve at this point. I'm not even going to get into it at all on how badly that's going to end up being. All in all, I think he's assuming way too much, and he seems to be on the Wii bandwagon completely and doesn't seem to be understanding that it's a lot of the problems with modern FPSs are level design and not the controls. Yeah, I'm getting to think this is just another Mad Catz Messina Wii lover, but he has a right to his opinion, and I'm just trying to, go against it. So, that's it for now. I will see you guys all later.